Paul Klee didn't begin as a master of color. He wrestled with it. Then, a burst of Tunisian light, years of fearless materials experiments, and a Bauhaus classroom turned struggle into signature. These 8 works show how one artist taught himself to make color think. Swiss-born and trained as a musician, Paul Klee chose painting and treated the studio like a laboratory. He scraped images into glass, layered watercolor over oil, and even tested burlap against canvas to see how a surface could change the mood of color. Among Blue writer friends, he pushed toward abstraction. In this video, we follow 8 works as waypoints, from early doubts about color to Tunisian light, from playful invention to the gravity of exile, to see how Paul Klee turned problems into strengths and reshaped what painting could do. Klee was born in 1879 into a Swiss family, a music teacher for a father and a singer for a mother. From an early age, Klee practiced both music and fine art with real success, while giving the bare minimum to other subjects. As he later noted, his strategy in school was always to do just enough to pass, but not so much that he overshot what was required. It was a narrow path, the risk of failing on one side, the fear of overdoing it on the other. At 19, Klee enrolled in the Academy of Fine Arts in Munich. There he studied under Franz von Stuck, a renowned German symbolist. Von Stuck could be conservative in his painting, yet he had a sharp eye for the instincts of young avant-garde artists and pushed them in targeted ways. A telling example came from his training of Klee's friend Wassily Kandinsky. Von Stuck banned Kandinsky from using color until his lines and forms were strong enough by themselves in black and white. The aim was to focus on fixing the weak foundation before adding the powerful lure of color. Klee's problem was the inverse. He was strong in drawing and etching, but color confounded him. That tension would become decisive. The very thing he struggled with would later define his voice. The lesson of this early period is simple, but important for reading Klee's career. He built mastery by isolating problems, then turning them into strengths. Right now, line felt certain, and color did not. But the following years would close that gap. After finishing art school, Klee returned to his parents' house and turned it into a laboratory. He experimented with techniques that blurred categories. He made images on glass by painting a dark layer and then scraping it away with a needle. He produced engravings and prints, older media that still felt fresh to the expressionist artists of his generation. Material play thrilled him. He layered watercolor over oil paint, mixed printmaking with glasswork. He even questioned the very surface of painting, sometimes choosing burlap instead of canvas. The point was not novelty for its own sake. It was to test what each material could do, and what happened when methods were combined in unexpected ways. If there is a through line in this period, it is Klee's refusal to treat technique as fixed. Tradition was something to question, and practice was how he found answers. Those homemade trials primed him for a circle that treated color like a language. In 1911, a mutual friend introduced Klee to Wassily Kandinsky and August Macke. He was struck by their breadth of thought and depth of knowledge. Soon, Klee joined the group known as Blue Rider, led by Kandinsky. The following year, Klee exhibited alongside Kandinsky, Macke, Franz, Marc, and other progressive expressionists. Together, they advanced new ideas about color and began to approach abstraction. This was as much a period of reading and thinking as it was painting. Klee absorbed theoretical writings by fellow artists while working through his own approach. In the studio, he leaned on simple landscapes, not as an end, but as a testing ground for structure, rhythm, and the force of color. The Blue Rider context gave him the intellectual scaffolding he needed. His works from this time show a growing confidence that color could carry meaning on its own terms. But sketches and theories needed a harsher test. If thoughtful, story-driven art history is your thing, consider subscribing to The Collector. It's the easiest way to catch the next deep dive, and your support helps us keep making them. Thanks for being here. Now back to Paul Klee. In 1914, Klee traveled to Tunisia with August Macke. The trip became a hinge in his career. Light and color in North Africa hit him with new intensity, and he learned to bend color to his will rather than to be overwhelmed by it. A clear example from this moment is Hammamet with its Mosque, a watercolor made just outside the city walls. The view is recognizable: white buildings stacked along a slope, a minaret rising above, but Klee lets geometry and color do as much talking as the actual architecture. The picture reads both as a place and as a pattern. That duality, representational and non-representational at once, is the breakthrough, nudging Klee closer to total abstraction. The clarity of light and the tonal shifts of the landscape encouraged him to step away from strict representation and toward more intangible structure and composition. Here, Klee's musical background shines through. Harmony, tone, and dissonance could be translated into visual decisions. This was a prolific season that clarified Klee's relationship with color and form. But the glow of that Tunisian light soon met a darker world, and Klee's work naturally changed with it. World War I cut through Klee's generation. His friends and fellow artists August Macke and Franz Marc died in the conflict. Klee avoided direct combat, instead painting camouflage on German airplanes. The scale of the war, the heavy machinery, aviation, and chemical weapons, shattered the older world all at once. Artists had to make sense of a totally new reality. Klee's response included a series of lithographs and drawings that faced death and destruction head-on. Death for the idea belongs to this moment. The brightness and play of earlier works give way to a darker register, anxious and pressed down by collective trauma. Many artists of Klee's circle found themselves changed in ways that made a return to their previous styles impossible. Klee was no exception. But out of rupture eventually came structure. At the Bauhaus, Klee would turn experiments into methods. Klee became one of the key teachers at the Bauhaus, an experimental school of architecture and design in Germany. He lectured on the theory of visual form and led practical workshops in bookbinding and stained glass. The Bauhaus aimed to reform industrial design by stripping away what was unnecessary. Form, it said, should follow function. The school assembled striking talent: Walter Gropius, Vasily Kandinsky, Paul Klee, and others. Even so, the output of students rarely matched the combined stature of its teachers. For Klee, the school served both as a platform to clarify his ideas and as a base from which to travel and experiment. In 1929, a trip to Egypt sparked a shift toward pointillism. The geometry of the Giza pyramids and the surrounding light helped crystallize a method: small, precise strokes of color building to a large, resonant whole. Ad Parnassum is often seen as one of Klee's finest works, a union of pointillist technique with abstraction and the avant-garde drive of his time. Method never killed play. It cleared space for the theatrical strangeness of Klee's most iconic works. Indeed, during his Bauhaus years, Klee also pursued the surreal and the playful. Fish magic captures that mood. Colored fish suspended in midair, a scene both theatrical and wry. The way he made it was as inventive as the image itself. Klee first laid down bold colors, then overpainted them with black, and finally scraped the top layer away. The process turned the surface into a textured field, where luminous tones press up against darkness. But this stretch of intense experimentation did not last. In 1933, when Adolf Hitler became German chancellor, Klee's teaching career ended. He was targeted in the campaign against so-called degenerate art. With teaching banned, Klee and his family fled to neutral Switzerland. They would not return to Germany. Back in Switzerland, Klee never fully recovered from the shock and upheaval. 2 years after his return, he was struck by an autoimmune disease and he died in 1940. In those final years, he painted intensely, often facing his own fears of pain and mortality. Death and Fire stands out as a summation of that late period. Using a language that recalls ancient signs, Klee embedded the German word for death, Tod, and approached the image like a code. A skull shape, an old emblem of mortality and darkness, doubles as a distorted mask. Some art historians link the style of Death and Fire to Klee's interest in prehistoric cave painting and ancient art. However one reads the image, it pulls a primal feeling to the surface, the nearness of death and the human need to give it a face. Paul Klee's artistic path runs like a tight loop. Identify a weakness, test it, and turn it into a voice. Early certainty in line met uncertainty in color. Tunisia unlocked hue and light. The Blue Rider years set ideas in motion. The Bauhaus clarified them into method, and late works like Death and Fire gave those ideas a stark human edge. These 8 pieces don't just catalog a career. They reveal how an artist thought, adjusted, and kept moving. That, more than just a single image, is the lasting story of Paul Klee.